YouTube? Capital G here, checking out the brand new Dragma archetype that just got revealed coming out of Rise of the Duelist. Is it me, or is Rise of the Duelist just bleeping amazing? Because it really feels like now that Konami is not having the core booster sets follow the storyline of the anime, they've taken off the gloves and they're just like, yo, we're giving you guys nothing but good cards, no more bad anime archetypes. Everything is going to be competitive focused, and I am loving that. This is another promising archetype. It looks like it can be a meta contender in my opinion, and this archetype reminds me very much of Necros, not from the sense that it's ritual based, because this archetype is technically fusion based. I'll talk about the fusion monster a little later, but this archetype feels like it is specifically designed to destroy your opponent's extra deck monsters, and really their extra deck in general. Necros was very similar to that with Brio, Colossalis, and things like Unicorn. That's why Necros felt ahead of its time. This deck basically does the same thing. Now, there are a bunch of cards, so this video is going to be kind of long, but I implore you guys to watch the whole video so you can figure out how the entire deck works. But anyways, let's go ahead and check out the first monster. This is Eklessa, the Dragma Saint. She is a level 4 spellcaster light monster. Now, the entire archetype is light and spellcaster. Well, there's one monster that's not, but for the most part, it's light and spellcaster. A lot of level 4s in here too. 1500 attack, 1500 defense, and your first and second effects are going to be hard once per turn. This is also, spoiler alert, going to be a blind go second deck in my opinion. The first effect kind of tells you that, that's the direction you should take it into. It says if a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. Second effect, if this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Dragma card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of Eklessa. Also, you cannot special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. Third effect, cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck. So you guys see how much these cards hate on the extra deck. Number one, if your opponent has an extra deck monster, which is again why I think you should blind second with this deck, you can just freely special summon her to the field. She can't be destroyed by any extra deck monsters if they're special summoned from the extra deck. If they're monster reborn or something like that, she can. She feels like a Stratos on crack, honestly. You normal summon her, you special summon her, you get to search any monster in the entire archetype. Now, you are locked out of the extra deck, but it's perfectly fine. Their fusion monster kind of cheats around that, and this archetype is not really extra deck based. In fact, this archetype actually sends cards from the extra deck to the graveyard, which is really going to be cool because things like Nethys and the new Fossil Fusion monster, those cards are going to be staple in this deck, which feels really good. The only thing is, this archetype feels like it should be extravagance based, but I don't think you'll be able to run extravagance because even though this archetype doesn't use the extra deck to summon, you still use the extra deck to send things. But honestly, this is a bona fide 3 of. This is like a 2020 version of Stratos where it searches everything, but it also has these other like amazing effects as well. Next up is Theo, the Dragma Iron Hammer. Theo is another level 4 light spellcaster monster, 1800 attack, 1500 defense. Your first and second effects are built into Eklessa as well, so I don't really need to read the effects again. Take everything I said about Eklessa in the sense of these effects and just apply them to Theo. Your unique effect is the third effect. You can target one face-up monster that was special summoned from the extra deck until the end of this turn. This card gains 600 attack, and if it does, that target loses 600 attack. So again, we're hating on extra deck monsters. It's the entire theme of this deck, and Theo basically accomplishes it in a beatdown phase. If your opponent has a monster that's like, I don't know, 2500 attack, you have the ability to attack over it. Your Theo can gain up to 24, and that monster will drop to 1900. So Theo is just kind of a beat stick in a sense. He has good stats. It's a monster that can do damage, and you're basically just going to be using this to run over your opponent's mid-size extra deck monsters. It's really not that complicated when it comes to Theo. Next up, we've got your sorcerer, or excuse me, this is Aiden the Dragma Oracle. It's another level 4 light spellcaster, of course. 1000 attack, 1800 defense, and your first and second effects are the same as normal. Your third effect is your unique effect. If this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon one Dragma monster from your deck, except another copy of Aiden. This is a useful card. It helps you get to the higher level monsters in this deck, and it also helps you get to Eklessa, which is Stratos on crack. So So I'm thinking that we're going to play a couple of copies. This card probably isn't going to do too much damage because it is only 1000 attack, but it does float into all the other monsters in the archetype, and that definitely feels useful. Next up is one of the bigger boys. This is Fleur de Lis. That is definitely some type of French, I think. The Dragma Knight, light, level 8 spellcaster, 2500 attack, 2500 defense, and your first and second effects are hard once per turn. During the main phase, if a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck is on the field, quick effect, so this is kind of like a hand trap, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then if you control another Dragma monster, you can negate the effects of one face-up monster on the field until the end of this turn. Effect number 2, when your Dragma monster declares an attack, you can make all Dragma monsters gain 500 attack. So obviously, they want this to kind of be the charge type card where you're looking to attack your opponent and you're going to be able to have more damage with your Dragma monsters. It includes itself, which is nice because this guy basically just goes up to 3000 attack anytime it's attacking. I like the fact that this card can act as a hand trap. If I just have one random Dragma monster on the board and you go ahead and you do special summon an extra deck monster, or you have a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck on field, I get to summon this card, then I basically get an effect failure. It does not target as well, and it feels like a pretty legitimate card. I mean, even if you're trying to just kill me with an extra deck monster and I have nothing else on the field, I can just summon this to maybe block an attack. So this card feels pretty good. Next up, we have Maximus Dragma. This is another level 8 light spellcaster. It is 1500 attack, 3000 defense, so not exactly a beater. Both effects hard once per turn. First effect, you can banish one fusion, synchro, XC, or link monster from your graveyard. Special summon this card from your hand. Second effect, during your main phase, you can activate this effect. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. Also, send 2 monsters with different names from your extra deck to the graveyard. Also, your opponent sends 2 monsters from their extra deck to the graveyard. This is a card that at first I didn't really think was good until I kind of read the entire archetype and thought about how it works. This card is actually phenomenal. Number 1, I'm thinking you're going to be sending things like Elder Entity Nethys to the graveyard. You're going to be sending some of those fossil fusion monsters, especially the one that pops monsters from the graveyard. Like, those would be amazing targets. Imagine you're blind seconding, right? You have something in your graveyard from the extra deck. You summon this guy. You drop Nethys. You drop a fossil fusion. You blow 2 monsters or 2 cards up on your opponent's side of the field. That feels pretty damn awesome. Also, spoiler alert, the fusion monster in this archetype, when it's sent to the graveyard, is actually a Rhoda for like the entire deck, which it's utterly ridiculous, man. This is such a cool concept for an archetype. But yeah, I think you're going to be playing this card. Getting some of those extra deck cards in the graveyard to start out with might be a little difficult, so this might not be a card you necessarily want your opening hand, but definitely feels very valuable. Then we got their biggest boy, their real boss monster. Actually, this archetype has a bunch of boss monsters. This is Tetradragmaton, the Heart of Dogma. It's a level 11 light spellcaster, 3200 attack, and 3200 defense. Damn, that boy is big. Cannot be normal summon / set, must be special summoned by its own effect. That effect is you can target 4 fusion, synchro, XC, or link monsters in either graveyard. Special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, banish those targets. Again, this is why this is a blind go second deck. Second effect, at the start of the damage step, if this card battles a special summon monster, destroy as many opponent's attack position monsters as possible, then inflict 800 damage to your opponent for each fusion, synchro, link, or XC monster destroyed by this effect. So this is obviously one heck of a boss monster. It has the ability to not only wipe a lot of your opponent's extra deck cards out of their graveyard so that they can't use them for other effects or bring them back, but in addition to that, this guy kind of has like a mirror force built into it. When it declares an attack on a monster that is special summoned, it doesn't even have to be an extra deck monster, just any special summon monster, it blows up all their monsters. It basically is mirror force, and then it can technically be a burning mirror force, like a blazing mirror force type deal, if you're killing extra deck monsters as well. Very powerful card. However, I'm not sure this deck is actually going to need this card to be functional, because there are obviously going to be some matchups where this card just isn't useful. Like, how are you going to summon this against Guru or Altergeist when they're barely using their extra deck at all, and they're really not even special summoning all that much? So I could see a world where you're not even really using this card, to be honest. Like, I'm not saying it's not powerful, but it could be a situational card, and I think it's going to be meta dependent. If we have a lot of decks that are using a ton of extra deck cards, then you'll probably be using this, or obviously it'll be stronger against like combo decks, but against control matchups, you probably will find this card more dead than anything. To the spells and traps, but don't worry, we still have more monsters. I told you, this archetype is freaking huge. The field spell is Dogmatic Nation Dragma. The second and third effects are hard once per turn. First effect, neither player can target Dragma monsters you control with the effects of monsters that was special summoned from the extra deck. Second effect, if a Dragma monster battles an opponent's monster after damage calculation, you can destroy that opponent's monster. Third effect, if this face-up card in the field zone is destroyed by an opponent's effect, you can make both players send one monster from their extra deck to the graveyard. Okay, there is basically nothing in this card that I don't like. I feel like all three effects are good. Number one, stopping your opponent from targeting your Dragma monsters with their extra deck monsters seems very solid. Number two, just letting you blow up any of their monsters after damage calculation just feels really, really good, and that can work during either player's turn, so that's phenomenal. And then number three, if your opponent tries to get rid of this card, if they destroy it in the field spell zone, it allows you to drop one of your extra deck monsters into the graveyard. Again, think about Nethys or this archetype's fusion, which I'll talk about in a hot second. But yeah, this definitely feels like a field spell that you're going to want to run. Next up is Disciple of the Nadir. Shout outs to Far for Yu-Gi-Oh! If you guys don't know, that's his real name. Normal spell, hard once per turn. Send one monster from your extra deck to the graveyard. Add one Dragma monster or Albus the Nellius Filius, another monster we'll talk about in a second, from your deck or graveyard to your hand with attack less than or equal to the sent monsters. For the rest of the turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck. All right, this card is just absolutely ridiculous. This is basically reinforcements of the army and warrior returning alive built into one card, but on crack, because you get the full, or you get to send one of your extra deck monsters to the graveyard. As I said before, this archetype's fusion monster has a floating effect from the graveyard, and you can also send things like Nethys to pop cards on your opponent's side of the field. So imagine sending a Nethys that's 2500 attack, popping an opponent's card on field, and then being able to search, a Klessa, the Stratos for the deck. Like this archetype honestly just seems bonkers. You're playing 3 copies of this card. We got a couple of trap cards. The first one is Dragma Punishment. Hard once per turn trap card. It says target one face-up monster your opponent controls. Send one monster from your extra deck to the graveyard with an attack that's equal or higher than that monster. And if you do, destroy the targeted monster. Until the end of the turn, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck. So this is basically like a spot removal card for the archetype. Again, I'm just going to say it 100 times. Imagine sending Nethys with this effect to the graveyard. You could basically pop 2 cards on your opponent's side of the field, which is absolutely awesome, man. Nethys is going to be so ridiculous in this deck. And then, of course, you can use the fusion monster. We have another trap card. This is Dragma Encounter. It's another trap that's a hard once per turn, and it says that you can activate one of these effects. So you either get to special summon one Dragma or Albus the Nellius Filius from your hand, or you can take one Dragma monster or Albus that is in your graveyard and either add it to your hand or special summon it. So this is a nice card as well. This is like another just dual utility card. Either you're going to special summon one of your guys from your hand and extend your plays, or you're going to get a Call of the Haunted and Warrior Returning Alive. Like, dude, why do all of these cards have like dual utility? I mean, just having a Call of the Haunted would have been fine, but being able to add the monster to my hand, like, Konami really wants this deck to be meta in my opinion. And the final 2 monsters in the archetype. Let's start off with that Albus guy we've been talking about. He is a level 4 Dart Dragon monster, 1800 attack, 0 defense, and you got a hard once per turn on this effect. If this card is normal or special summon, you can discard 1 card, that's a cost, fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using this card on the field, and monsters your opponent controls as materials. Oh baby, don't you just love using your opponent's monsters for your own plays? Everybody likes when they get super polyed, right? This card has that built into it. You do have to discard a card, but if you're using your opponent's monsters, I'm definitely on board with that, especially when you look at the fusion monster this archetype has. And finally, the real boss monster of this archetype that never actually has to hit the field to be good. This is Bastard, the Ashen Dragon. Yes, that's its real name. It's a level 8 Dart Dragon fusion monster, 2500 attack, 2000 defense. Are those the Stardust stats? Anyways, your materials are Albus and 1 monster with 2500 or more attack. Its third effect is a hard once per turn. First effect says gains attack equal to the total original levels of monsters used as materials for this card's fusion summon times 100. Effect number 2. After this card is fusion summoned for the rest of the turn, it is unaffected by activated effects of any monsters that were special summoned from the extra deck. Third effect, during the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can take one Dragma monster or Albus from your deck and either add it to your hand or special summon it. Alright, so this card is unaffected by opponent's extra deck monsters. You can use your opponent's monsters to summon it. It never actually needs to be summoned to be good, and then when it's sent to the graveyard, it's just going to basically be a Scarm for the archetype and give you a free monster. This card is just absolutely amazing. I really love this archetype. I feel like this is one of the coolest and most unique archetypes Konami has designed in a very long time. The archetype needs its extra deck, but it doesn't need to summon from the extra deck. That is so awesome. I know this video has been long, but hopefully you guys got to this point. Anyways, if you did, I love you, and thank you guys for watching this video. Subscribe if you have not already. Leave your comments in the comment section below and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.